Hand it over to Dr. Saini Philip.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the plenary session 2 of the International Conference on Sustainable Practices in Rapidly Changing Business Scenarios. It's my privilege to introduce our speaker to you today, Mr. Biju Sivakumar. Sir is a seasoned professional with over 30 years of experience in shipping and logistics industry. As the CEO of Navio Shipping Private Limited, based in Navi Mumbai, Mr. Biju has been at the forefront of the industry since 2014, leading his organization with great expertise and vision. Mr. Biju's career has seen him collaborate with prestigious shipping lines such as P&O Nedloyd, Australian National Line, Ceylon Shipping Corporation, and Cargomer. He has played a pivotal role in establishing Cargomer Education Society, a premier shipping institute in Kochi, and serves on the advisory board of Skills to Career, a shipping institute in Calicut. His dedication to education extends his role as a visiting faculty member at leading institutions, including NIMS, Universal Business School, and other renowned B schools. In addition to his professional accomplishment, Mr. Biju is a passionate sports enthusiast, actively participating in soccer and cricket. He is also a marathoner, having completed half marathons at the Tata Mumbai Marathon. Beyond his industry expertise, Mr. Biju is one of the 10 mentors at Space, where he shares his wealth of knowledge to help companies meet their corporate goals. We are honored to have him here with us today to share his insights. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Biju Sivakumar. I request Dr. Rajni, our program head, to welcome our speaker, Mr. Biju, with a sapling. Handing over the session to Sir. Sir, please.
Dr. A.V. Rao, Dr. Vishwanathan, Mr. Harsha, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. A very good morning to all of you. So yesterday I was here for the first half of the sessions, and I witnessed 3 prolific speakers touch upon sustainability in a manner which was absolutely mesmerizing. In fact, there were a couple of takeaways and had taken down few notes which I would like to recap. The first one was from our director, Dr. Srinidhi Parthasarthi, and he said, every craving soul which has an unaccomplished task would come back to establish and finish the task. The second one from our own director, Mr. Sridhar Murthy, Dr. Sridhar Murthy, and he said, and reminded rather, of our responsibilities and duties to take care of our own Mother Earth. We also had Mr. Abhishek Ranjan, who shared his wisdom, especially on how to balance sustainability and unorganized growth. So having heard them yesterday and I was a little awestruck that how am I going to deliver to this awesome audience, especially on a subject which I don't master in. So I thought, I'll set the stage with a sharing of a short story and maybe then take it on. So this story is something which I'm sure most of you have heard, but I've tried to tweak it in a manner to fit my requirement and version. So this incident happened in a very remote village in India. The Mukhya or the Sarpanch of that village once summoned everyone to the only pond in the village, and when the people came there, he declared that anyone who can jump into that pond and swim across would be awarded with a pot of gold. At that moment, everybody was looking to each other. Nobody dared. And suddenly from nowhere, a boy jumped into the pond. By the way, the pond was infested by crocodile. So this boy jumps into the water, swims across, and as he reaches the shore, there was a loud applaud for his bravery. And as promised, the Mukhya did award him with a pot of gold. At that point in time, the boy expressed his wish to share that particular pot of gold with the person who actually pushed him into the water. So, like that boy, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Rao, who pushed me into the pool of intellectuals whom have been listening since yesterday, and then I've left with no choice but to share my own experiences. So what I thought was the whole session, I'll break it into two parts. The first part, more of my journey, my story, and how I connected with shipping. And the second part would talk about the current challenges and the sustainable practice shipping has to the globe. In fact, this is one subject very close to my heart, and it's not really understood by many people, also because it's not been really promoted even at the institute levels. So are we all ready for this? Fine, so my story starts, and I did a very soft graduation degree in botany, zoology and chemistry from the Osmania University, Hyderabad. And thereafter I landed up in Kolkata to find a job, and I happened to start my career as a freight broker. So this was a community very limited, like 72 seats were there, and you need to earn it by virtue of you getting associated with them, and then there are round of trainings, interviews which happens. So after 6 months of being associated with the company, I was picked up and was declared as a member broker. So the job was very easy. It was to be the middleman or one who would negotiate the freight on behalf of their customers with the shipping line. So that's how I started my career. Obviously those days not much of technology, no phone calls, it was all on the notes. We used to have our booking notes done, and then that's how it used to happen. But during that stage, as I started my career, I always had a dream to join one of the largest shipping companies in the world then, and it was called P&O Containers. This was a UK-based company, and eventually I did join them, and that was after it got merged. In 96, P&O was UK-based company, Nedloyd was Netherlands-based, and it got merged to become one of the largest companies in the world called P&O Nedloyd. I happened to be with them, based out of Kolkata again, and that's where my learning started in the shipping lines. The job took me to the southern part of India. I was based out of Coimbatore, taking care of the hinterland. So the differentiation here is Kolkata, unlike the other ports, is a riverine port, the only riverine port in India where the draft is not much. When you say the draft, it's the depth of the water where the ship has to come and berth. Ship is known as vessel in our language. So from there, I moved into a landlocked area like Coimbatore, and that's called the ICD, Inland Container Depot. I'm sure some of you would be doing logistics, right? How many of you are doing logistics? Just in case you don't understand my language, you can always raise your hand and I'll clarify that. Okay. So it's a general... okay. So maybe you can pick up, it's no Greek and Latin. I always say to be in shipping, what you need is common sense. So I'll continue to speak, but just in case you don't understand any of the terminology, like I said, ship we say as vessel, we never mention it as ship. So ICD is Inland Container Depot, which is a landlocked area where the ship cannot come. So Coimbatore was an ICD, and it was primarily there for the export of tea, which used to come from Kunur belt, Ooty Kunur belt, and it also had a lot of textile machineries moving from Coimbatore. So that's the kind of business which they had. Tirupur was another belt known for its garments. Like said, it was all knitted garments being exported from them. So I understood then in my second phase, moving from the port, the aspects of how a business happened. And I'll relate all this later on with the transportation and how carbon footprint does matter. So in the same job, I had a larger responsibility to take, and I was moved to New Delhi. And that was again an eye-opener for me, because one of the largest markets for India, especially the northern ICDs. So I kept moving to most of the ICDs, whether it is ICD Tughlakabad is the largest in India, which is in Delhi. Whether you talk about Kanpur, whether you talk about Jodhpur for handicrafts. So multiple similar ICDs where actually the origin of the cargo happens. So if we have heard about red tape shoes, yeah, we have heard about red tape shoes. So it gets manufactured by a company called Mirza Tanners in Kanpur, and then it gets moved by either rail or road to the gateway ports, and then subsequently gets shipped out into US East Coast, Canada, and Europe. So yeah, so having spent my time with P&O Lloyd in Delhi, I then chose to come and work in Mumbai, because that's the commercial hub of shipping, and I started working for a company called Cargomar. So Cargomar is more of a freight forwarding company, which unlike P&O Lloyd, where you have the ships and the containers, Cargomar was more into multimodal transportation, right from your X-works to the last mile. So when we talk about the transportation, it is like basically moving cargo from A to B, to make you understand. A being the port of origin, B being the port of destination, A being the place of supply, B being the place of demand. Further to explain, if there is a manufacturing unit, say in Faridabad, that could be a factory. So imagine something being manufactured in Faridabad, it has to move to the end destination. Suppose it is New York and US, so how does it move? So from Faridabad, it might go into a warehouse by trucks. It might further go into the ICD, which I said, where all this custom process happen. Because for any cargo which needs to be moving out, you have a customs formality to be completed. Once that is done in the ICDs, it then gets moved by either rail or road into the gateway ports. So the nearest gateway port being Mundra, which is in Gujarat, or Nhava Sheva. So from there again the ships are called in the terminals, and then it goes into the final destination by sea. So if you look at it, any transportation which happens has got four modes: rail, road, air, and sea. And each of this leg, obviously it is going to impact our environment. And the carbon footprint or the emission of greenhouse gases depends on the mode and the fuel being used. So that's how the shipment generally happens. Right. There's one more thing which I thought to share with you today. Sustainability is a buzzword, right? And every possible organization, industry, or nation wants to get associated with it. Yeah? And this could be for, many would be doing this for their own commercial benefit or some hidden agenda. But there are few more very seriously concerned about the world we live in, and there's an earnest effort to bring down these kind of carbon footprint. So when you talk about sustainability, again, as our earlier speakers also said, these are various measures being done or put in place to bring down these kind of CO2 emissions. And this, I believe, can be attained by choice or by force. Now, something which is by choice would sustain or would be more effective. So if we could, bring this kind of an awareness right at an early stage through institutes, through our society, at home, I think it will make more meaningful. But today what happens is it's been forced onto us by the lawmakers. There are regulatory bodies who is doing it. So you're doing something because it's a law. So I'm not sure how effective it would be. So there was a survey which was done by LX Partners. It's a finance advisory and consulting firm. And it said 49% of the CEO feel the external pressure regarding environmental concern. And 79 actually feel the pressure to take a stand on this. So it's not a natural process. They've been forced to do this. For me, I think I was fortunate enough to have born into an Air Force family. My father was within Indian Air Force and served the nation for close to 4 decades. And I've lived in an environment which is more of a cantonment, which naturally, where the greenery flourishes. And naturally we were taught, or in our curriculum, plantation, gardening, taking care of trees, environment was part of it. We never related to sustainability then, but by natural process we were taught to do certain things which today we talk about as sustainable practices. In fact, I still remember we were put in a hardship station. It's a place called Tejpur in Assam, where there is scarcity of resources. So we were taught how best to use the resource, be it water or electricity. So whenever I get a chance to talk to my son, I do spend time with him talking about the kind of abundance they have in their lives today. As compared to, I'm not complaining, but we valued those resources then. And it's very important when you talk about sustainability or sustainable practices, how much we value these resources. I also remember we were also told and taught how best to use the resources again and again. In fact, my rough notebook for all your calculations, writing, were one side of the already used paper. So much so that we were always asked not to waste paper. And I still carry my handkerchief in my pocket. And I prefer this over a tissue paper. You look at the kind of paper being wasted at airports, at the offices, and it's actually a big crime, I would say. And if these small things are taken care of, I think we would take one step closer to what we are trying to say or attain. Yeah. So after having spent almost 20 years in the corporate world, like Madam already explained, I had this fortunate to be associated with some of the big brands and shipping lines. I thought of starting my own business, and this was almost 10 years back. Actually, we completed 10 years on the 8th of September this year. Yeah. So So, me and my partner, we had known for more than 2 decades, and when we came together to start, and we don't come from a business background, we've always worked as professionals. You do need money, but more than the money, what you need is a clear vision and purpose of what you want to do. And I think we were very, very clear on when we started the business as Navio that we didn't want to be a regional player or India-based company. We want to be a global player contributing to the society at large. And when we defined purpose then, we said Navio is here to create abundance in the lives of Navians, their families, and all the stakeholders, which means whoever is associated with us, directly or indirectly, should also grow when Navio grows. So it's not about you growing at the stake of squeezing somebody else. So that's the kind of purpose we had. After 10 years, we've revisited this. From just being into shipping, we've said, let's create a fulfillment in the world we live in. And in true sense, in various activities, not just CSR is mandatory, but we've contributed back to the society. So that's the pleasure what we get when you give it back. Every business, I'm sure many of you would end up as entrepreneurs, and every business has to create wealth, no doubt about that. But that's not your ultimate goal. That's an incidental of your purpose. You focus on the process of what you want to do, and in the bargain, you will also end up making some profits. So that's an important message I would like to give to the youngsters here, that we need to be very, very clear with our purpose. We should know why we are doing what we are doing. The why factor should be very, very, very clear. Obviously, in our value system also, we have experienced sustainability, excellence, and respect as 4 fundamental aspects. And when we started our business also, between the partners, we said, it's going to be people's organization. Okay, there's no business without customers. But if we are able to take care of the requirements, the needs of our people, we will ensure that the customers are going to be satisfied. So again, it started with that kind of a focus. We also were very clear that we will do business only this way, not whichever way. So there were certain non-negotiable values for us when we started the business. There are many more ingredients, and maybe at some other time I would definitely like to share those experiences too, which goes a long way when you want to build your career in corporates, when you want to build your own empire. And as I said, the first 2 obviously is the vision and the purpose, but the another very critical aspect is decision making. And I strongly believe there is never a wrong decision being taken. You make decision or no decision. And when you don't make decision and you're indecisive, you're stagnating yourself and the organization you are in. Just in case you make a decision which doesn't go the way you want, that's absolutely okay. You learn something, you make correction, and then make a decision which takes you on a path to success. But many a times, we are scared about what if I go wrong, what if I fail, what if people say you didn't take the right decision. If that is the thought process, we will never be able to move forward. So this has been some of the ingredients. There are many more, as I said, but today the subject is different, so I'll stick to the subject. So coming back to some numbers which I'll now want to share to relate you with the enormity of shipping activity which happens, especially when I'm talking about India's EXIM market. When I say EXIM, it is export-import trade. And we value the volumes in terms of containers. You would have all seen the containers, right? The container ICD in Bangalore is in ICD Whitefield. Inland Container Depot is in ICD Whitefield, and you would have seen those containers. Containers are in 20 footers and 40 footers, and we term it as 20 equivalent unit, TEU. So the India's EXIM trade is about 20 million throughput. The throughput means import and export put together, out of which 55% is export and 45% is imports. Again, 70% of this business happens through the corridor of northwest region. When I say northwest, it's again the major ports being Nhava Sheva, Mundra, Pipav, Kandla. These are some of the major ports in the west. And the ICDs, as I mentioned, one of the biggest ICDs, ICD Tughlakabad in Delhi. Then you have ICD Ahmedabad, Jodhpur, Jaipur, Badaui, you name it. All business flourish in these corridors. It's in all these satellite ICDs. And then they move into the port area where the ship berths, because the ship cannot go to a landlocked area. So, and the remaining 30% is what is being contributed from the ports of south and the east. Again, 2.5 is the contribution of shipping activities to the world CO2 emission. This is about 940 metric tons of CO2 emission. Today, 90% of the world trade happens because of shipping, and it's contributing to the global economy. Unfortunately, most of us do not know about it, and that's the terminology called sea blindness. For example, we're sitting here, I'm wearing these specs. Probably the frame is manufactured in China, the glass is manufactured in some other country. It gets moved into a warehouse, consolidation happens. From there, it goes to a retail, to an optical, and then I go and purchase it. When you walk into a McDonald's, you get the same standardized quality food. But the logistic behind that we may not probably understand. So this is what is happening in our life. You wake up in the morning, right from the brush you hold to the pillow where you go to sleep. Everything is made possible because of shipping and logistics. Today, how many of you have visited Dubai by any chance? Yeah. So it's like glittering, right, when you go there. But today, Dubai would have been a desert city but for shipping. There's nothing being manufactured there. Everything gets imported. And that's one of the largest center for trading and tourism. So that's what shipping is doing to each one of us, touching our lives. Yeah, I already explained you about shipping. That's primarily moving cargo from A to B. To put it in a very crude manner, it's transportation, right? Think about you shifting your house from, say, Electronic City to, say, Whitefield. I'm just giving a name which I know. So you engage a transporter. He would come, probably pack your goods in order to ensure it doesn't damage, list it down, and that receipt is called lorry receipt. We in our terminology call it as bill of lading. So a document very clearly mentions about this, what is being handed over to that person. It gets moved by road and then gets offloaded, unpacked, and again stacked. And you hand over back the lorry receipt. So that's the process which happens. So in shipping, when you talk about an international business, many a times when I say I'm in shipping, so people relate, oh, so you're on ships. So there's nothing to do with ships. This is basically the commercial activity of the EXIM trade, what we deal in. So it's all about moving cargo from A to B, as I said, and you keep defining it as your understanding is better. And there are various Incoterms, international commercial terms, which defines the risk of moving the cargo and the cost of moving the cargo from a shipper to the buyer. Yeah, so that's again a larger subject to discuss. And again, as I said, the mode of transportation could be rail, road, air, and sea. These are only 4 possible mode of transportation which can happen. And the emission of greenhouse gases could be based on the mode, route, and the fuel being used. Yeah. So sustainability is all about the measures taken to bring down the carbon footprint. and in Navio we very well understand this. We have taken certain measures which is both administrative and from business point of view. When I say administrative, it could be smaller measures like we don't use a plastic bottle or a PET bottle in our office. We avoid tissue paper wherever possible. It's not 100% still done, but then wherever possible it is limited. We switch off our electricity whenever is not required, especially during the lunch hours. So every small things which can help sustain, we consciously do it. There is also frequent education or workshops being conducted within the organization to bring this awareness. End of this day, as I said, you can't bring things by force, but if you are able to educate and bring awareness, probably the sustainability part would be better. And from a business background, having realized this, we enrolled ourselves in 2021 with a network called Eco Network out of Spain. Now, this is a network like when we work as freight forwarders. Okay, now there are three categories of service provider when you're moving cargo from A to B. I'm coming back to the same point, moving cargo A to B. There are three kinds of service, primarily three kinds of service provider. The first one are the shipping lines, the one I said like P&O and Lloyd. They own their ships, they have their own containers. So the ship and the container belongs to them. Then the second category is called the NVOCC, non-vessel operating common carriers, wherein they have their containers, but they don't have the ships. So they have this arrangement, slot arrangement with the ship owners to move their containers from A to B, again A to B. And the third category is the freight forwarders, who would neither have a container nor a ship, but they can still add value to the entire supply chain. So at Navio, we are both NVOCC as well as freight forwarder. When we say NVOCC, we represent multiple principles. One of the principles being Navio Dubai office itself, where India acts as an agent, and we have got 8,000 odd containers. So these containers, what you see, we own it, almost 8,000 of it, other than representing many other principles. And the NVOCC business is generally in the short haul, short route. Right? It's like that share auto, which shuttles between 2 points. It's a fixed point, and you keep shuttling it. So similarly, NVOCC for us is India, Middle East, Upper Gulf, Indian subcontinent, Far East and Southeast Asia. It doesn't really cover the larger routes, the Latin America, North America, or Africa, or Europe, or Australia. It doesn't go there. So how do you then cater to your customers? As a freight forwarder, then we do have partners across globe by virtue of various networks. So it's a common network, we come and meet. So we move the cargo from the origin, say, same example, Faridabad, ICD, coming to Navasheva. We ship it out through a shipping line. So when it reaches the destination, since we don't have our own office, our representative as agents, network agents, would handle it there and ensure the further movement of cargo to the end destination. So is this clear? The concept is clear? So we are a freight forwarder as well, and understanding the importance of sustainability, we are part of a network called Eco Network, which helps you, these are like-minded people coming together not just to do business, but do business in a manner where the impact to the environment is less. So Eco Network has a beautiful program. It has got a platform, a software which helps count the carbon emission. And it also gives you an alternative route, ship and fuel, whereby you can bring down the carbon footprint. For instance, since 2021, we've been able to calculate for all our shipments almost 45,000 tons of CO2 emission. And it has aided us in bringing down the GHG, that is your greenhouse gases footprint, by 53%. So if we would have done it, not done it mindfully, we would have contributed more, damaging. But this is one network, we come together, and this is one step which we do it from the business perspective. So choosing your partners are also very important. The shipping industry itself is undergoing a significant transformation driven by sustainability concerns and regulations. Several key trends are shaping the future of the sector, focusing on reducing its environmental footprint and maintaining efficiency. Now, a few of the things which is happening here is decarbonization and green shipping. So this is the International Maritime Organization, regulations have set up where they want to bring down the CO2 emission by 50% by 2050 as compared to 2008. There are also alternate fuels which is being used now. The fuel currently which is used is called the bunker, which is a heavy fuel and causes damage to the marine habitat. So alternate fuels are the LNG, biofuels, ammonia, hydrogen, methanol. These are the ones which are being used to replace the traditional bunker. The other technology which is being used is a wind assistant and the solar. So when you talk about wind assistant, it is like the kites or the sails which propel the ship, and using the solar energy to propel the ship, whereby you cut down on the carbon emission. Then there is electrification and hybrid vessels. Battery powered ships are being put to service, especially in the short haul. Electric or hybrid propulsion system is in use. These help cut emission in port and emission controlled areas. The hybrid vessels, which is traditional engine with battery storage, optimizes fuel efficiency and reduces the emission, especially during berthing and low speed operations. So what happens is, when the vessel is berthing, it comes to the outer anchorage, and each of this, when you talk about the liner shipment, the container vessels, it has got fixed window that they've been given a particular time to come, and then they have to berth and then sail out after completing the move. That is, first it discharges, that's called the import discharge, and then it takes on board the export load, and then it has to move. So the technology is such where they ensure the windows are less, it is effective, the movements are fast, so that idling time is reduced, and thereby the emission also gets reduced. Then there is another technology which is called carbon capture and storage technologies. This basically is about shipping lines. It's very primitive stage though, are investing in technology where the carbon emission can be captured on board before it goes into the environment. So a lot of work is still being done. To tell you very frankly, shipping industry is still a very, very unorganized industry. And in many ways, especially when it comes to technology, they are laggards. They are not the first one who have adopted many of the technologies. But today, it's getting compelled because of, again, as I said, rules, regulation, and organizations like IMO. Then there is digitization and smart shipping, whereby automation and AI is helping in route optimization. So when the vessel is sailing, they would tell which are the best routes to take, avoid, the bad weather or current where the frictions are more. All this again contributes for the emission of carbon CO2. Smart ports are becoming more automated with technologies that reducing the waiting time in the outer anchorage, cutting emissions caused by idling. Exactly what I just shared. Then there is circular economy and recycling. So there are many ship breaking units. Once the ship is to be moved out from the routine voyage, the ship breaking happens in a particular place, and many of the raw materials are reused so that you don't have to spend again in the manufacturing of aluminium or steel which goes into the making of the ship. The other important aspect which we have seen in the recent time is the slowing down of the vessels. The ship would move slow, which again ensures that the emission is controlled. But what it does is it increases the transit time, it increases the deliverables, delivery time rather. But that is far more, the advantage when you look at it is far more better than these kind of delays which would happen. ports are using technology and fixed windows to avoid the waiting time of the ships at outer anchorage, as I said before. Other than port, the areas where all this activity happens is ICDs, container freight station, which is near to the facilities of the ports. Then the yard, you would have seen those container yards where containers are placed, empty yards. Here also the kind of equipments which are used now is using fuel and technology, which again helps in bringing down the carbon footprint. Some of the challenges what we see in our trade, and I'll go back to the disruptions which happened right from the COVID times. In fact, in my 30 years of career, when I look at shipping industry actually benefited out of the COVID situation. While many industries were still struggling, and it happened because of huge gap in the demand and supply. You know, when COVID happened, and it's going to happen even now as I'm talking to you, there's a whole lot of discussion happening in the US East Coast, where the dock workers are threatening to go on strike from 1st of October. What it means is 50% of the imports into USA is going to get impacted. What it also means is the containers which is going to be reaching there may not get discharged. It will remain on the vessels, which also means is your vessels are going to get delayed. Again, it will create a kind of disruption. And when there is an imbalance between the supply of containers and the ships, it impacts the exporters, the entire EXIM trade. Obviously, you will find the freight rates going up to 300%. So that's what we witnessed during COVID also, and this is also what is happening now. It is also because of the geopolitical situations. We've seen because of the war situation which is there in Ukraine and Russia, it has disrupted the entire supply chain. The bigger threat today is the Red Sea, because if the cargo was to move from India into Europe or into America, it would go through Suez Canal and the Red Sea and go to the final destination. But today, because of the Houthis attack which is happening, the ships are taking a complete, you visualize the world map, it's taking a complete route of Cape of Good below the South Africa to reach out to the final destination. So it is increasing the transit time, it is, the consumption of fuel is more. So these are the possible disruptions what we are currently seeing in our industry. In the coming years, the shipping industry's role in global trade will remain vital, but its contribution to environmental protection and sustainability will be closely scrutinized. So, towards the conclusion, I would like to share a few thoughts. One is, we all know there is 8.4 million species which is there in this world, and the most evolved one is a human form. We can consciously do something. So we should not let go this human form and try and identify what is the purpose of our life. More so today, when you talk about sustainability, how consciously is our karma or action going to be, which is going to have an impact to the world we live in. So that's a very important aspect. And to finally conclude, I'm just taking these words again from Bhagavad Gita 2.47, which is very common to all of us, and we've heard about it, which says, Karmanye vadikaraste ma phalishu kadachana, which says we need to do our duty and do not expect or get attached to the fruit of it. Today, as we talk on this sensitive subject, our duty is to take care of our Mother Earth, do everything possible which is going to help sustain these resources, and we owe it to our future generation. So on that note, thank you very much. If there is anything specific to shipping, I'll be more than happy to address. Otherwise, I'm done. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to invite Dr. B.N. Shivakumar, sir, to present the memento to our speaker. So please. Thank you, sir. Thank you all. We will break for tea. And then at 12 o'clock, the session by Dr. Vishwanathan would be there, the fourth plenary session. Thank you all.